Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I'm Alex, and I live for building. Specifically, custom racing drones. For years, the Etheria Fab Lab was my second home, a sanctuary where I poured my heart, soul, and considerable savings into pushing the boundaries of drone design. I'd spent countless hours perfecting my latest creation, a high-performance model that was slated for a regional competition and a potential sponsorship deal. Then came Rob and Brooke. They were younger, barely out of their teens, and full of an arrogant entitlement that grated on everyone. They saw the lab not as a shared resource, but as their personal playground. Initially, they just pestered me with endless, insipid questions, then started borrowing my specialized tools and returning them broken. I tried to be patient, to mentor them even, but their behavior escalated. Soon, my project started suffering. Small, custom-fabricated parts, components that cost hundreds of dollars and weeks to design and print, would go missing from my secured workstation. Wires were cut, calibration settings tampered with, and on one occasion, a critical flight controller mysteriously fried. The final straw was when they ruined a prototype carbon fiber frame, costing me my shot at the sponsorship. They didn't even bother to hide their smug satisfaction. My friend Marcus saw them loitering near my station before the incident, and their denials rang hollow. I tried talking to Ms. Thorne, the lab director, but without concrete proof, her hands were tied. I knew then that direct appeals wouldn't work. It was time for a different approach. My mind switched from designer to strategist. I knew Rob and Brooke coveted high-end drone parts, constantly complaining about their inability to afford them. That's where the trap would lie. I'd build a decoy drone, visually stunning but functionally inert, packed with fake, high-value components. I'd make it seem like my latest, most vulnerable, and most expensive prototype. I'd forget it, seemingly unprotected, on my workstation, with a barely ajar security panel on my personal cabinet nearby, just enough to tempt them. The real trap involved their shared storage locker. It wasn't the most secure, and they kept their own expensive, to them, anyway, custom drone parts there. Hidden above their locker, I installed a small reservoir of a highly corrosive liquid, specifically chosen to dissolve or ruin sensitive electronics and carbon fiber, yet relatively harmless to human skin on brief contact, and easily cleaned from metal or plastic surfaces. This reservoir was connected to a solenoid valve, triggered by a motion sensor and pressure plate discreetly integrated into the base of my decoy drone. The instant someone lifted the decoy, it would initiate a 15-second timer, giving them just enough time to grab it and head towards their locker before the dispenser activated. Crucially, I also installed miniature night vision cameras with encrypted feeds, meticulously hidden within ventilation grates, overlooking both my station and their locker. My execution was meticulous. I announced to a few lab regulars, including Marcus, that I was taking a short, much-needed break from the lab, implying my prized prototype would be safe enough overnight. I set up the decoy, made sure the security panel was invitingly ajar, and activated the cameras. I left the lab, but instead of going home, I drove to a nearby cafe, monitoring the feeds on my laptop. It wasn't long before my patience paid off. Around midnight, the feeds flickered to life. Rob and Brooke, creeping in with flashlights, giggling conspiratorially. They went straight for my workstation. Rob lifted the decoy drone, triggering the pressure plate. Brooke grabbed a custom motor from my cabinet. The timer began. They exchanged a triumphant glance and, just as I'd anticipated, headed straight for their locker where they stashed their pilfered goods. As they stood there, fumbling with the lock, the timer ran out. A silent, perfectly timed whoosh from above their locker, and the corrosive liquid rained down, directly onto their open locker, soaking their own custom drone components, their flight controllers, their motors, their carbon fiber frames. They both shrieked, covered in some of the liquid, but thinking it was just a messy prank. They just slammed their locker shut and fled with my decoy, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding inside their own belongings. The next morning, I arrived at the lab, feigning surprise. Ms. Thorne was already there, examining the horrifying mess within Rob and Brooke's locker, alerted by other members who had arrived earlier. Their electronics were bubbling, carbon fiber frames warped and disintegrating. It was a total loss. I innocently mentioned my missing prototype. Ms. Thorne, looking grim, reviewed the lab's general security footage, which only showed Rob and Brooke entering and leaving. Then I remembered my own personal cameras. I provided her with the encrypted footage. It showed everything. Them taking my decoy, triggering the trap, and the subsequent activation over their locker. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Rob and Brooke were not just expelled from the Etheria Fab Lab, they were banned from every associated community workshop in the city. Ms. Thorne shared the footage with relevant local tech groups, effectively blacklisting them from the drone racing scene and any future sponsorships. The financial loss of their own gear, easily thousands of dollars, was devastating enough, but the public humiliation and ruined reputation were truly life-altering. They went from entitled prodigies to pariahs overnight, their names synonymous with thievery and sabotage. It was exactly what they deserved. Watching their world crumble around them, knowing it was a direct consequence of their own malice, brought a profound sense of peace. Justice, in the end, found its target, and it was glorious.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.